with it being the end of the season, anime season specifically, I'm going to go back and look at some shows that I've been watching throughout and actually doing reviews on them as individual videos rather than doing a full-on roundup. So, I'm going to be looking at Blue Exorcist Yosuga-Hen, which is basically, if I remember correctly, it's the 5th season of Blue Exorcist? Something to that extent, I'm pretty sure. But basically, well, it's a continuation on from the previous season because we did actually get episodes at the end of last year, going into the end of the year, and then at the beginning of this year. So I guess 2 seasons sort of back to back of Blue Exorcist, but they're treated differently within my anime list, so I'm kind of looking at them differently as well. But basically, Blue Exorcist Yosuga-Hen specifically deals with the events of the birth of the main character, the backstory to basically everything that has happened up until now. Or rather, like, sort of, I guess it's a prequel to season 1, except that the main character goes through the memories and the events leading up to his birth, his growth, and ultimately the first episode of this entire series. Now, the first season was just a fine show. The first season of Blue Exorcist was fine. Season 2 onwards, they changed the art style. The characters don't look quite as good as what they did in the first season, and that kind of hurt its quality a bit in terms of both the writing not matching the art and a few other little bits and pieces going on there. This season in particular was not good, at least not in my opinion. I did not enjoy the whole season being basically a flashback arc, essentially. The thing is that all of this stuff has already happened, so how does this change everything that is going on moving forward? You're just learning about things from the past, and it's also not presented in a great way because there is a lot of points in which things do get boring. Yes, it all leads ultimately to a crescendo of events and things that happen all kind of at once near the end, and I'm going to not really talk spoilers, but I am going to vaguely like talk around some of the events. It's just like, ultimately you would think it's just a fine show, but the thing is, I was actually quite bored for most of the show, and in fact I didn't actually have any interest in any of the main characters for the story outside of our main man on the left here, Shiro. So Shiro is, of course, the sort of father figure to both Rin and Yukio, because obviously he's the one who raised the two of them, but the fact of the matter is that he was killed off at the beginning of the first season, so it's worth mentioning that is actually not a spoiler because we do know about this, because it's basically what kicks off the story for the entire series as a whole, so there shouldn't be any surprises there, all things considered. I can understand why people might like the season, but way too many parts of it were too boring, or just details are just being glossed off, because there's a lot of like terminology that goes around, like Gehenna, for example. I don't expect people to know what that is, but by now in the series you should know. But the thing is that my interest has largely been waning on the series for quite some time. Like I said, season 1 was just a fine show, but I only kept watching because I had watched season 1. Season 2 was not great, but serviceable. Same with season 3. Season 4, and now I think at season 5, I think is kind of where we're at now. It's just not, it's long, and it's not like, I don't feel any interest. I don't like the main characters. The idea could have been executed a lot better, I feel like. There does feel like there's a lot of bloat at times. The show tries to get you to like some of these characters, but does it in an incredibly poor way, to the point where you're just kind of sitting there looking at it being like, really, you want me to like these characters? Like, I don't know, man. I ain't feeling much for them, if I'm being completely honest. But that's from my personal opinion. Again, people could look at things a little bit differently and be like, okay, maybe there is some joy in some of these shows. Also, during these reviews, I am actually not going to be doing any like, I'm not going to have any sort of visual like B-roll or anything running in the background, because if I'm being completely honest, I don't want to get like, you know, copyright struck or anything like that, because it has nothing to do with the audio. But I feel like, especially when it comes to like Toei animation, they could just see one picture of one Dragon Ball character and then they'll ultimately just, you know, strike a video down because someone drew a picture of Goku that looked too close to Goku, but just turned out to be a stick figure of someone saying this is Goku, basically. So I don't want to, like, you know, get struck down for anything, just because I'm talking about other shows. So basically, I didn't really have that much fun with it. I didn't like the opening theme all that much. I didn't like the ending theme all that much. The overall story is fine for what it's worth, but because it's so much later on in the series, it hurts its chances of more people watching it, or hell, just even keeping up with it. The characters are presented to you, but they aren't all that likable. And visually, the show is just serviceable as a whole, both in terms of its art style, which I am very much not a fan of, especially when this series tries to get into some significantly dark territory like human experimentation. I'm not going to explain that any further, just take that for what it's worth. Yeah, I'm just kind of sitting here just basically sort of shaking my head, thinking to myself, ultimately at the end, what was kind of the point? Are we really going to be getting more seasons to the point where we'll actually reach the end of the series? And even if we do, will the journey have ultimately been worth it? And I don't think that is actually going to be a yes in any way, shape, or form. Even if they had like the greatest ending in the world, I feel like the journey is so easily critiqued to the point where it doesn't feel like it's adding much to the series. But that's kind of my opinion on the whole show and kind of bits and pieces leading up to this particular season. So with all of that being said, after watching 12 episodes of this, I'm actually not a fan of it. In fact, I actually don't like the show all that much. So I'm actually going to be, on my enemy list, I'm actually going to be putting it at a 4 out of 10. Not a fan of it, don't like it, can't recommend it, and if you've watched up until now, all I have to ask you is why. For me, the why has basically just been, oh, I will never drop a show. If there is another season, I will watch it, I will keep up. And I suppose that's only because, hey, I know when I watch things that I like, I know what I like about it. When I watch a show I don't like, I know what I don't like about it. So I can kind of provide my opinion in that way. But with all that being said though, let me know what you guys think about all of this, my opinion, and if you've watched this show, all of that in between in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. With all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.